Hey, welcome. This is Dr. Tom Curran. It's great to be with you. I'm going to be sharing some insights today about living the Camino after the Camino. The Camino, again, is this 34-ish day walk across northern Spain. That's the most famous route, the Camino Frances. It's a pilgrimage, right? It's walking a path of prayer and penance, and doing so with a bunch of other pilgrims in accord with about 1,000-year tradition of seeking the face of God, honoring the Lord, and oftentimes carrying a burden, carrying people in situations we're interceding for, or even just desiring deeper spiritual growth for ourselves. And so I was doing this journey for a number of reasons that I've shared with you many times in the course of my journey. Well, here I am. I'm back home. Yeah, I'm back home, and uh, it's been 2 weeks. It's actually been 2 weeks and 2 days. So it's been 16 days since I finished the Camino. Well, did it work? Did it stick? What's my post Camino life been like? So that's what I'm here to share about. And it's one of those things that I think there's a relevance for you as a practicing Catholic, or if you're a practicing Catholic, the realm of Lent, right? How often do we like think about what am I going to give up for Lent? Then you live your Lent, and then you move into the Easter season, and the question was, what was that all about? Did that work? Did I anything enduring come from that Lent that I just lived? Well, this was a bit more intense than just living a Lent, because I can live a Lent at home in the course of my own life, but walking the Camino meant going to northern Spain. And so there was a lot more disruption. That was the phrase that came to me not until the very end, that there was a gracious disruption that happened in the Camino. And interestingly, the gracious disruption, now that I think about it, started far before I got on the plane on August 25th to start my Camino. It started about 50 days before that. So 50 days before that was around the time frame when I came to the clarity and made the decision, after some prayer and thinking and investigating and discerning, okay, what are the goals that I have for walking a Camino? It was time to be more intentional and planful around getting ready for the Camino. So, roughly speaking, there are like three stages for a the reality of the Camino. There's the time of preparation and planning and training, the getting ready stage. Then there's the executing on that plan. Right? You get on the plane, well, for most folks, and you fly to the starting point. And if we just stay with the traditional Camino, you're flying to either sort of central Spain or maybe Paris, and then you make your way one way or the other by another short flight or by a train, maybe by a bus, to get to Saint Jean Pied de Port. Right. So that's the second stage is you're getting launched on the Camino, and then there's the actual walking of the Camino, right? So there's your second stage, is doing it, where you walk the path, you hike the stages, you make it through from beginning to end. And lots of folks don't, right? Lots of folks don't make it through the entire path, some intentionally, so they don't have the full length of time they need. And so they will do it in smaller chunks, smaller portions, and get through the Camino in 2 times, or 3 times, or 4 times, and eventually get through it. I'm part of that group that was able, by the grace of God, to be able to have the time and the capacity to be able to finish it. So that's the second stage, and yeah, gracious disruption happens. Lots of powerful disruptions happen in that second stage. But one of the sort of truisms that emerges as as it emerged for me when I was studying all of the preparation and planning videos and channels, there was this sense of saying, just you remember, when you get back from the Camino, you're not going to be the same. And people would talk about, my life was changed, it was transformative, it was it just set a whole, this whole new awareness, this whole new vision and consciousness, or using really, really big terms to identify a transformative change. And so they would tee up the idea that, in a certain sense, while your Camino ended, living the impact of the Camino doesn't end. Now, for me, I want to say my approach to this was just a little bit different, for a couple of reasons. The first is that, as a Catholic and as someone who sees life in the light of the Camino, like sees life as a pilgrimage towards heaven, then the idea that going on the Camino was going to be somehow like radically transformative of my life, going from 0 to 100, right? Or going from negative 100 back to positive 100, right? So turning around something fundamentally shifting in my consciousness, that now I'm aware that part of the structure of life is that I am on a journey, I'm on a pilgrimage. That was already in me. That was already in me, at least let's say that was in me to a certain degree, prior to going. And so I want to share with you, well, what's actually happened in the last two weeks and 2 days since I've been back, because I noticed that even in these 16 days, uh, there's been some shifts. There's been some surprises for me. So I've already talked quite a bit about getting ready for the Camino, the preparation and the training, and how that was graciously disruptive. It graciously disrupted my use of technology, the introduction of exercise, the beginning to eat a better diet, losing some weight, getting a little bit more physically fit, ready for the Camino, and just all of the preparation and planning that had to happen around my family and home and work as well. Okay, so the journey of the Camino, you have followed me. If you have cared to, and you still can, you can go back and watch the videos of every single stage of the journey and what that meant for me. I've already shared with you some of the reflections on the biggest surprises that happened, the way that my Camino ended. And then tomorrow you're going to hear, or I just actually recorded yesterday and streamed 12 spiritual insights that came into special focus, came to be emphasized greatly on the Camino. And so if you follow me on the radio, that's actually going to be heard tomorrow, right? But for those of you that follow the live streams, you already heard it yesterday. I don't mean to make that confusing for you. And so, without question, there has been some real advances in my own spiritual life, and some highlighting of themes along the way in my spiritual journey. And for those, I'm very grateful. So now let's talk about coming back to real life, coming back to my real life, right? Coming back to the life that I was living before I left. Well, was it true that what I did on the Camino, in terms of eating and exercise and prayer and silence and technology use, that it just rolled on into my day-to-day life afterwards? And the answer is kinda, not entirely. And interestingly, this again is one of those areas where I'm surprised that folks who do training channels on the Camino don't emphasize a lot, which is, hey, when you're a handful of days away from going back to your normal life, here are 5 things you might want to be thinking about in order to make a healthy transition back to your the life that you left behind, because that life is no longer going to be so stripped down, right? That life is going to become crowded up again. And the thing that is obvious when I say it out loud right now, but I did not realize the impact that it would have on me when it actually happened, uh, was the jet lag. So I was 9 hours ahead of my life at home. And the journey home not only took 24 hours, but it was exhausting. And I got up at what was 7:30 in the morning on the day that I got home. And when I finally got into my house, it was 8:30 the next morning in Paris. So I was flying home from Paris. So it took me 25 hours to get from Paris back to Spokane Valley here in the state of Washington where I live. So it was quite a journey. And the thing that didn't help, this was again a bit of an oddity to me, is that I got on the Delta flight, and we start crossing the ocean. We get out over across England, and then I noticed that all the flight attendants were having everybody shut their windows, their window shades, so that the plane was completely in the dark. And there was one window that was still up and open, mine. I'm thinking to myself, why are you doing this? It's during the day, right? We left, the flight left. It was like 12 noon. It's in the middle of the day. I don't want to have my body think that it's nighttime. This is going to like throw my body off even more. My strategy, as simple as it was, and I didn't think it through intensively, was I'd flown home a number of times from Rome, Italy, to the East Coast, and I always had experienced flying home to be much easier than flying to Europe, because I could fly home and it was just an extra long day. And if I was able to stay up for that extra long day, then I could go to bed during my normal nighttime and get a good night's sleep, a long night's sleep. And then, yeah, I would experience some jet lag, but not that big a deal. Well, that's not what happened here. And so I relented and put the shade down for a time, for a few hours. And then I'm thinking, all right, I'm sorry. I've just got to keep this thing up. And so it started to immediately throw my body off. Long and the short of it was that by the time I got home, by the time I got back to my house, it was, again, about 11:30 at night. And um, it really was not a fun, let's say, maybe 4 or 5 days. I know that sounds like a long time. It was more than 3 days where, like, I got home Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was probably Wednesday um, before I experienced a sense of really Thursday, before I was not impacted by the time change. And that that was unfortunate. It was unfortunate because here I am. I'm trying to fully engage, right? Here I go. Sunday. Okay, great. Thank God it was Sunday. Got to go to mass. Didn't have as much of a hurried schedule. And then, okay, I won myself a bit of favor because people weren't expecting me until either Wednesday to come back from work. So I was supposed to get back Tuesday night, or even later in the week. So my schedule was going to be a little bit more open, and this would give me more time. Well, unfortunately, man, my body was impacted by the long walks I took, the long travel, and now here I am, and I want to live my post Camino life, but I'm not in the best condition to live my post Camino life. So I didn't pray the way that I had built up in me this whole tradition of praying, praying for several hours a day, praying 20 decades of the rosary. I've been home, let's see, 14 days. I haven't yet prayed the 20 decades of the rosary even once. Wow, that's shocking. I wrote some notes down in my journal on it was Saturday in Salt Lake City, and I'm journaling, and I'm journaling, what am I going to do to live my post Camino life? And it was, I'm going to eat in accord with my Camino eating style, which was healthy eating, no bread, really low on the carbs, no sugar, and no junk food. I'm going to eat healthy, the fruits, and I'll stick with my eggs in the morning, maybe some bacon. I'll have a salad, and then I'll have a piece of meat. And that's it. I'm not going to eat the junk food. I'm not going to have alcohol. I'm not going to have. I'm not going to have sugar, right? And or bread, and it's worked. So that's a highlight. A highlight is that I did weigh myself when I got home, and I weighed myself yesterday. Now, this isn't that impressive, but my weights continued to go down by a few pounds. And so I'm like, wow, all right, that's good news. That's good news. Now, hasn't been perfect, right? I slipped 3 or 4 times and had some popcorn, had some chips, like tortilla chips. Um, uh, let's see, I think I had like a few M&Ms once, right? So yeah, little things. Yeah, I'm not being perfect, but um, I'm still far ahead of where I was, and I'm still carrying forward so much of my Camino spirit regarding eating with me, and that's huge. That's a really beautiful gift of doing, like when you make a Lent, when you have Lent or even Advent, right? You're doing something long enough where you're able to both break down a habit and establish a new habit. And so that's part of my goal, right? That was one of my goals of doing the Camino, is establishing these new habits, and having everything stripped down to be able to let me focus on that has been, again, a great help. And the momentum of that has definitely carried forward. So for the eating side of things, an A minus. For the prayer side of things, I have prayed. I have gone to Mass more. I have taken prayer times. But in terms of what I thought I would be living, in terms of my prayer life, I don't know. That's a C minus. I am not at all pleased with how far I've gone, and in terms of advancing in my own life of prayer. So that for me has been a definite disappointment. So what about exercise? So regarding the exercise, uh, again, if I want to live this Camino spirit, the question is, should I just be continuing on with the walking? And I did walk a couple of times with Carrie, not extensive walks, but just to get up early and start to build that into our routine. And so that's happening. And I did uh, uh, start working out differently. I started to exercise a bit more, like using weights rather than just exercising my legs through walking. And so I want to give myself a little more favor there, and said that, well, that's probably a B. And so that's good. That's on my mind. I want to say the thing that has continued every day since I've come back, which was a plan of mine, has been live streaming. And so every day since I've been back, I've done at least one live stream. And so I wouldn't give myself though an A plus yet. I'd give myself probably an A minus. And the reason is that I can definitely improve on uh, the commitment I made to pray the Rosary live. I know that that's something that folks that have followed my channel on Facebook in particular have really valued, the opportunity to pray live the Rosary as a means of ministering spiritually. And I definitely look forward to improving in that and coming back in alignment with that. And then when I think about the other goals that I have, so one of those goals is to be more engaged in ministry work. I did have the chance to speak at a men's retreat, gave a couple of talks at a Q&A session just this past weekend. And that went really well. And I would say it went really well, not only because, oh, I enjoyed the talks, but I do feel like there is that shift in me, that the Lord has done a work in me that is spiritually enlivening. It has been a spiritual blessing to me. And so I am definitely um, seeing some of the fruits of that. I also have engaged with someone to help me turn the videos that I've made and these reflections on the Camino into a book. And so that's going to take some time, but I'm moving down the trail now. I'm moving down the trail. I'm on the way to writing a book about the way. And this would be, again, distinctive from other books that are about the Camino that are more or less telling sort of stories, either maybe historical stories and then their own anecdotes about what they're experiencing. Mine is much more a sort of spiritual odyssey, a spiritual journey of encountering individuals and seeking this path of prayer and penance. And so, stay tuned for that because I am excited to make that a priority activity to advance a book about the way, about walking the Camino. And I think I'm going to call it Jesus is the Way, Reflections on Walking the Camino in My Encounters with Christ and Others, something like that. We'll see. Regarding my one of my other goals, which was to shift how I was doing real estate, and I did have a chance to speak at the conference last week. I spoke at this luxury real estate conference last Tuesday, and it went really well. And so that was beautiful. And I'm following up now intentionally with work in that regard as well. So I see that I'll give myself a an A. Yeah, that was pretty much an A around that real estate stuff, and I would say A minus or so around continuing on with the ministry work from walking the Camino. So definitely there are good things happening in my own life of faith as a result of walking the Camino. I got to tell you that one of the convictions that emerged in me that was so different than other, let's call it significant actions I've taken to disrupt ways that I've been living in the past. Like, for instance, um, if I had changed my eating style to lose weight and I took on an eating program, right? It's not just a diet, right? But an eating program that was going to bring about a significant change. And it worked, right? So let's say in the course of a month or two, I would drop, say, 30 or even more than 30 pounds. Sure enough, give me another couple of months and I've gained back 10, 15, 20, 25, and then eventually all of the weight. So, you hear about yo-yo dieting, and even though I didn't relate to it as a diet, I was very conscious not talking about it like that. And I made a commitment to myself. I'm not going to go backwards once I get there. Sure enough, I've fallen backwards every time. Well, this is what's different. What's different about this Camino is that it cost a lot to take that journey. Hiking the Camino, it cost a lot. Now, I don't just mean money. Yeah, it did. It cost a lot of money too. It was a sacrifice for my family to have me go do the Camino. But it cost time. It cost me this much time, this total of the 35 days, plus all of the time that I invested prior to it as well in terms of prayer training and all of that. So there was a definite cost in terms of investment of time. And then the investment that my family also made, especially Carrie, staying home with the kids that were here and having to care for them and all of their needs without my physical support. I could talk on the phone and I could, hopefully give some guidance. I could do some emails and stuff like that, but I wasn't there. Carrie was the one that was carrying the heavy burden. And um, so that was significant. And then lastly, it was the fact that I felt like the Lord had opened a door, given me this opportunity to do this, and I said yes. And I and my family, we joined in and we said, yes, go do this, Tom. And I did it. And I've got this conviction now that says, I will not go back. I will not go back from where I've come. I'm going forward on the path. And that's truly one of the themes of the Camino is Ultrea. The only way out is forward. The only way out is forward. And so I do want to encourage you to stay on your path, push forward, and realize that the only way out is forward. All right, God bless you.